Today, you are going to learn about the murder of Jasmine Jazzie Porter. Jasmine Porter was a gifted professional singer, a loving mother to her young son, as she prepared for her second bundle of joy. Just days away from her and her son's birthday, in which they shared the same day and moving closer to her family in Long Island, her life ended by the hands of an evil individual right in front of her 4-year-old son. Jasmine's neighbor went to do a wellness check on her, and that's when she discovered her lifeless body. Shortly after, police pronounced that she and her unborn child were deceased. Police stated that they believe the child had been left alone with his dead mother for at least 24 hours. At the police station, the 4-year-old boy said that he saw a naked man on top of his mother. He had heard his mother scream, "Jeremy, help!" Then he said his mother told him to run. The boy also told police that he knew she was hurt, and he knew people who were hurt needed ice. So he put a chair close to the freezer, climbed up, and got an ice cube. He then went back to his mother and placed it on her head. Evidence was collected, but without more witnesses and no suspect, the case went cold. Well, that's until 26 years later, when Detective Robert Klein of the NYPD received a mysterious call from a Bronx prosecutor who heard jailhouse chatter about Ms. Porter's case, according to the New York Times. Detective Klein and his team searched many files, finally discovering that there were fingernail clippings and scrapings taken from the victim that had never been tested. After months of testing and running the prints through the police database, they got a hit. According to WNBC, the suspect was a repeat offender in the Department of Corrections system. Turns out that suspect Gregory Fleetwood, 20 years before Jasmine Porter was killed, another young woman was attacked by him. Denise Wiggins, who was a 21-year-old, had grown up along Davidson Avenue in the Bronx, about a block from a steep concrete staircase that leads to the 4 train. On August 6, 1984, Ms. Wiggins and her friend rode the train to Manhattan. Also on board was Mr. Fleetwood, a man she knew only as a loner, living across the street from her. Ms. Wiggins saw Mr. Fleetwood again around 6 p.m. as she walked out of a corner deli and felt a large hand grab her from behind. Ms. Wiggins later told the police that Mr. Fleetwood dragged her up to an apartment and kept her there for about 13 hours as he repeatedly raped her. At one point, she said, he choked her and she lost consciousness. When she came to, he let her go. Ms. Wiggins said that she went home, straight to her room, and shut her eyes. She filed a police report. The suspect was arrested on August 8, 1984, and charged with first-degree rape. But Ms. Wiggins said her parents were afraid that what had happened would be a burden of shame on her. Mr. Fleetwood's sister also urged her to drop the charges, she said. She told the police she did not want to proceed, and Mr. Fleetwood, who had been held at the Bronx House of Detention for 6 days, was released, according to City Correction Department records. 3 years after Ms. Wiggins went to the police, Mr. Fleetwood had been locked up again. This time, it was in the death of Linda Miller, a 25-year-old pregnant woman from Paterson, New Jersey, whom officers found in the afternoon of August 7, 1987. She was lying on a bed in an apartment on Corsa Avenue in the Bronx where Mr. Fleetwood had been staying. Mr. Fleetwood, who had called the police himself, stood outside the building and told the officers his version of what happened. He said he had met Miss Miller on the street before they went to the apartment to use drugs, police department records show, and he admitted to smoking crack. The night quickly turned violent. Mr. Fleetwood described how he had repeatedly struck Miss Miller before falling asleep. He said he later woke to find her dead. The city's medical examiner ruled that Miss Miller died from strangulation, and the police charged Mr. Fleetwood with second-degree murder. But Detective Klein learned that Bronx prosecutors had downgraded the charges to first-degree manslaughter as part of a plea deal. According to State Corrections Department records, Mr. Fleetwood went to prison on December 13, 1988. He would remain there only until August 4, 1994, after the New York Parole Board authorized his release on the first day he was eligible. Upon his release from prison, Gregory Fleetwood returned to Davidson Avenue. Nearly 2 years later, on February 5, 1996, Jasmine Jazzie Porter, 36-year-old pregnant woman who lived on Davidson Avenue, was found raped and murdered in her Bronx apartment, while her then 4-year-old son Jeremy was present. On the morning of August 8th, Detective Klein and his team pulled up in an unmarked car to Mr. Fleetwood's apartment building on Laconia Avenue near Gun Hill Road in the Bronx, just 5 miles from where Miss Porter was killed. The 6'2", 66-year-old man who did not look like the monster his pursuer had pictured. Mr. Fleetwood was arrested by Detective Klein coming out of his apartment building. Gregory Fleetwood was charged with second-degree murder. He is still awaiting trial. 7 months later, Detective Klein and Miss Porter's son, now 32-year-old Jeremy, met up, raised by his loving and protective grandmother and family in Sullivan County, New York. After graduating high school, Jeremy went on to take college classes and is a plumber. He now lives in Rochester, New York with his longtime girlfriend. He never told her about how his mother died until her case was reopened. Sadly, his grandmother passed away months before the case had been officially solved. Thanks for watching Cryptic Clues. We hope you enjoyed the content. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned for our next video.